Welcome. My name is Chris Hufnagel, and I'm a faculty director of the Berkeley Center for Law and Technology. I made these videos to help my 1L students learn how to use their computers more efficiently and to introduce them to the Word skills, that is, the Microsoft Word skills, that are necessary for practice. I then realized that many practitioners might want to see these videos as well, so I've adapted the videos for people in practice. Let me tell you a little bit about the video before you start. Most of my demonstrations are done on a Mac, but where there are relevant differences, I have included examples from the PC. Some of these examples might be too simple for you. Just fast forward if it's too easy. But note that I'm a big believer in sharpening the saw and in studying the tools we use to do our trade. The first part of this workshop focuses on how to use your computer more efficiently. Then I go into Microsoft Word. I'll show you how to set up Microsoft Word so it has the proper settings for legal practice. And then I'll show you how to make a template for your office memoranda. And this will be a pretty template, one you can be proud of. I think it's important to make pretty documents because at the end of the day, our documents are a form of product that we create for our clients. They ought to look good, and we ought to be proud of them. The second part of this workshop covers finer details of Microsoft Word, including how to create a template for a legal brief, how to manage the privacy and confidentiality issues that are hidden inside Microsoft Word, and some pretty powerful tricks to clean up a badly designed Microsoft Word document. So for instance, if you were to get a file from a colleague who doesn't know these tricks, I'll show you ways to clean up their document really quickly with programmatic tricks instead of those that require you to fix everything manually. So let's get started. Computer scientists at Google announced several years ago that a majority of internet users did not know about the most important keyboard shortcut on your computer, Control F or Command F on a Mac. That's the shortcut that brings up the Find Text dialog, whether you're using a web browser or a program like Microsoft Word. Keyboard shortcuts are one of the most important tools to using your computer more efficiently. Keyboard shortcuts let you avoid going to the mouse, and the mouse is bad for you, it slows you down, and it's bad for your ergonomics. With keyboard shortcuts, you can very quickly select all text, cut, copy, paste without formatting, and importantly, you can do functions like undo in case you have messed up your document. There are also operating system level shortcuts that are very important. For instance, on the Mac, if you press Command Spacebar, go ahead and try it. It brings up something called Spotlight Search. If you use that tool, you can very easily turn on a program without searching for the program's icon. It's a huge time saver. Now on a Mac, that extremely useful tool, Spotlight Search, is available by just clicking on Command Spacebar. But on a PC, it's even easier. Just press the Windows key and start typing. So instead of searching for the icon for Google Chrome or Microsoft Word, click that Windows button and start typing the word Chrome. And Chrome will come up much faster than you could ever find the application using your mouse. On both the PC and the Mac, there are keyboard shortcuts that let you change between programs. On the Mac, it's Command Tab. On the PC, it's Alt Tab. That lets you switch between Microsoft Word and a web browser or whatever very quickly and without going to your mouse. Our software today is really bloated. It has too many commands. So one basic way to find commands is to click on the help icon and to search for them. I use this function all the time, particularly with Microsoft Word, given that it has so many commands nowadays. This module comes with a handout covering different keyboard shortcuts that you can study. Start using them, and every time you go to your mouse, ask yourself, is there a shortcut I could use to become quicker and more efficient? I want to share a special warning about copy and paste. We use copy and paste a lot as lawyers because we need to quote statutes and opinions and so on, and that's totally fine. But often when you paste, it also incorporates the formatting from the source document. In your final document, we can often see that a student has pasted. And then it begins a cycle in our heads. Should this student have used a footnote? Is this a plagiarism problem? Know that pasting often will change font size, font color, font type. Sometimes the paste will use straight quotes instead of so-called smart quotes. All these things are a signal to a supervisor that someone's pasted and hasn't done a clean job of it. So you want to make sure that when you use paste as plain text or paste and match formatting. Here's a tip that I guarantee you'll use as a lawyer. Websites disappear. About 20% of links on the web go bad in any given year. As a result, as a lawyer, you often have to find evidence that was once on the web and now it's gone. One of the most important sites to know about is the Internet Archive. This website archives, that is, backs up much of the web, and you can find old versions of websites on it. And so here it is. I've typed in New York Times, and you can see that the Wayback Machine has archived it hundreds, maybe thousands of times, going back to 2000. And if you click on one of these blue dots, you can see what the New York Times looked like. Here it is back in 2003. It's kind of fun to do this. You can check out what the web looked like a decade ago. Now let's turn to Google and its advanced search capabilities. Google actually hides advanced search because most users find it intimidating. But what advanced search lets you do is use Google much more precisely. Most people don't understand that Google actually alters the searches you make because the company assumes that you don't really know what you're searching for. They also assume that you are misspelling words. So using advanced search and the syntax associated with it, you can do searches that have exact matches for the terms you want, or you can exclude terms that you don't want. You can also do a search of a single site. That is, you can limit a search so it only looks at, let's say, law.berkeley.edu rather than the web in general. Let me show you a neat trick. It's one of the things that is sometimes called Google hacking. Google has an advanced syntax that lets you look into its search database and find information it's archived. So if you use the syntax cache, C-A-C-H-E, colon, and then a website that you're interested in, here I have ft.com for the Financial Times, this is going to search Google's cache, that is, Google's history of ft.com, and present it to you. I've loaded it because the cache is kind of slow and it takes a minute to load, but here we go. Here's Google's copy of Financial Times. Now the cool thing here is, if for some reason the Financial Times is down, you can go to Google and use the cache function to retrieve it. But it also means that you can retrieve information from Google that people have erased. So if you're involved in a case and the other side have taken down their website, you can often find it backed up in Google. I want to be a little bit more explicit about the capabilities that are enabled by Google Search. So here's an example. Here's the website of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. You can see the URL here. Now, most government websites are not well designed. They provide a search box and other ways to find documents, but often that search box won't give you all the documents on the site. So we can use Google to search this site. I've put in this search term, site alamedacountysheriff.org, and I've asked it to return just files of the type PDF. You could also search for Excel sheets, Microsoft Word documents, and other types of files. And you can see that it returns 183 PDFs. That's pretty interesting. And many of these files are likely not to be available in the standard website search. Now, to be even more explicit, if I add a term like confidential, one of the things you'll find is that many businesses and government agencies post confidential information inadvertently. And when I do this search, I only get 17 results. Most of them are not very valuable. But you'll see the second result here is a confidential draft of a report about the COVID-19 problem inside our local jail. This type of problem is actually endemic on the web. All sorts of agencies and businesses inadvertently post information, and this information is now publicly available to you in Google if you know how to search for it. So let's start off with some of the basics of Microsoft Word. We need to know some of the terminology that characterizes the program. For instance, Microsoft Word has become very bloated. It has many commands, and these commands are locatable in redundant places. One important distinction is between the menu bar and the ribbons. These different ribbons have functionality that's often in the menu bar, but sometimes the functionality is in the ribbon but not the bar, and vice versa. Some of the important commands to note are the turn on all character view, which will help you diagnose your documents and find stray characters and so on. But also this new editor feature that's in the home ribbon. The editor feature is great for stylistic advice, and it will even help you do things like spot when you have reverted to the passive tense. It'll help you keep your prose in the active voice. There are a number of important settings you should change as a law student. It'll save you a lot of time if you make these changes, and it could even save your work. The first thing to do is to open up the preferences in Microsoft Word. You want to change several elements of how Word works. On a PC, click File, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see Options. If you click that, it will bring up this dialog. Under the Save settings, change Autosave. By default, Autosave is backing up your documents every 10 minutes, but in 10 minutes you can generate quite a bit of work. So I would reduce that down to 2 or 3 minutes to back up your work as you're working. Now that Autosave feature backs up your document on your own hard drive. If you turn on the other Autosave feature, it backs up your files in Microsoft's cloud. Now that might be fine, but it also might endanger client secrets. So it's something you'll have to think about as you start to collect sensitive client information. Under the View tab, be sure that you click this option for View All Hidden Characters. This is going to help you spot errors in a document. Next, go to Spelling and Grammar. It's important that you click this box to make sure that Microsoft is spell checking uppercase words. I don't know why Microsoft skips uppercase words, but it does. And the result is, for lawyers, your headings might be misspelled because so many of our headings are in all uppercase letters. Turning back to Windows, there are minor differences in finding these settings. So for instance, grammar is under proofing on Windows, but you'll find the same settings available. Be sure to change them. Also, if I'm going too fast, remember you can use the spacebar to pause this video, make your settings changes, and come back to it. From there's something a little bit more complex. In grammar settings, if you scroll all the way down, you can tell Microsoft Word to check for things like the passive voice. This is really helpful because one of the most important things in legal writing will be switching to the active voice so that you are more precise and more concise. In autocorrect, be sure to go in and click on this tab as you type. Microsoft automatically converts ordinals to superscript, and we don't want this. Superscript is actually difficult to read, and it's improper in legal briefs. Now to some privacy and security issues. Under User Information, know that Microsoft Word injects your name into all the documents that you edit. That might be a problem. You might want to change that. I leave mine as Microsoft Office User. Now on a PC, this setting is under General Settings. In software, you want to disable macros. Macros enable other people to send you software that will run on your computer, and this can be a disaster. You generally do not want to enable a macro. Only do it when you really trust the sender. Windows puts these settings under Trust Center. And then finally, Microsoft Word knows many different languages. Make sure it's set to English. So to recap, there was a lot in this module. Please know if you take the time to make these settings changes, your documents will be better structured for legal writing. I've also included a handout with a guide to these different changes for you. In this module, we're going to create a template that you can use for a legal memo. It'll be pretty and it will be functional. One of the first steps you should take is to examine the margins to see how wide the document will be. Unfortunately, Microsoft does margins in a weird way. It's buried under this strange setting and it's hard to find. If you drill all the way down here, you'll get to something called Microsoft Word, and here you can choose margins. Be sure to make your settings apply to the whole document so that the entire memoranda has 1-inch margins all around. It's also important to put page numbers in every document you create. The supervisors to whom you provide your documents are busy people who are reading many different documents. Page numbers are essential, but unfortunately, Microsoft does not inject page numbers into files by default. You have to put them in your file. There are several ways to insert page numbers, and it's not so obvious. One way is to double-click at the top of the page, and you'll get the header. The header and footer ribbon will open, and in there you'll see that there's an option to go to the footer, and there's an option to put in a page number. It gives you this dialog. You can choose right alignment or center. Press OK, and there you have your page number. Never give your supervisor a file that lacks page numbers. From here, the key tool is Microsoft Word's styles. Styles are really important to use. They can control the formatting in your entire document and save you tons of time. They can also homogenize the appearance of your document so you don't have different font, different spacing, and different colors and so on in your document. There are two really important advantages to using styles, and that's why it's worth going through the rigmarole of learning these techniques. The first is the style will help you create a homogeneously designed document that looks consistent. Your document will look better if you format with styles rather than engage in character formatting. The second is just as important. For people with disabilities who use screen readers and the like, styles create headings that screen readers can understand. So think about people who might be using a screen reader or some other assistive technology. They will be much better off if your document is styled rather than if it is formatted with character formatting. Here's text from the famous Paul's graph opinion. A lawyer editing this would probably use character formatting. That is, they would highlight individual words and then make font adjustments and emphases to them. This isn't the proper way to edit because changes do not propagate through the document. If I make discussion italics, it doesn't make holding italics. So here's another way. We can start with text. Here, let's say the body of this decision. Notice that this is formatted using the normal style. You click on the styles pane here, you can see all the styles in your document. Now, we can modify the normal style, and this is going to change all the text in the document. We can make it double-spaced, and of course we should switch over to Times New Roman. Once we've applied this, we'll see that all the normal formatted text in the opinion is double-spaced and in the Times New Roman. Notice the headings have changed too. The headings need to be marked as a special type of style. In Microsoft Word, you typically use heading 1, We're going to change heading 1 though, because it's the wrong font, so we get it to Times New Roman. Also, Microsoft Word uses colors. Shouldn't use color, just use black. And once you've done this, you can apply the heading 1 to all the different headings. And subsequently, when you make changes to headings, it will propagate through the whole document. So once we figured out how to modify a style, we can create a document that will be consistent with legal writing requirements. It'll be double-spaced. It will use Times New Roman font, which is no longer the default font in Microsoft Word, so we have to change it deliberately. It will make sure that it's left justified, and it will comply with all the other requirements. For instance, we'll create a special style to deal with block quotes, which are supposed to be justified and have only single spacing. So here we go. In order to make this process easier, I've put a bunch of dummy text and headings into a blank Microsoft Word document, and I'm going to use this to structure my headings and the ultimate template. Notice that the margins are 1 inch. These are the settings we set earlier, and we have a page number here. We definitely want page numbers by default in our memo. So let me get this text in order. I'm going to open up the Home ribbon, and then in here you'll notice the Styles pane. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new style. We're going to call it Memo, and this is going to be the body text style. Basically, the style that's going to govern the ordinary text in our memo. And we're going to have to take a couple stabs at perfecting this. So here's my first attempt. I'm going to make it Times New Roman 12. It's left justified. I'm going to add some spacing so that it's easier to read. That's 1.5 spaces, but you could make it 2. Importantly, you have to do this drag down menu and go to paragraph, because here you can do some special things. We'll add first line indentation to make new paragraphs easier to see. Now, once we've done this, I'm going to highlight this paragraph of body text and apply the style just by clicking on the style. So there we go, and that looks pretty good. It's much easier to read than it was before, and I can go through and format several paragraphs just to get an idea of what the final product will look like. Now, I'm going to take this text here just arbitrarily, and I'm going to use it to make the next style, which will be for block quotes. We use block quotes a lot in the law, so it's important that we have a special style for them. So I'm going to create a new style. Critically, this style is going to be based on body text, and it's going to therefore inherit the characteristics of body text. We'll call it block quote, and the style for the following paragraph will be body text. You see it's inherited Times New Roman 12 point, but we want it to be single spaced. If we go down into paragraph, we can make a couple more optimizations here. Oh, I also want it to be justified. In paragraph, we don't want that first hanging line indentation. And otherwise, let's add that for no space between paragraphs of the same type. That will make sure that our block quotes don't have big spaces between them. So we can apply, let's see, I need to highlight this text here, and we'll apply block quote. And you can see, well, we have a block quote here, but I still need to do some more optimization. Block quotes should be indented, so we can change that under the paragraph tab. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 1/2 inch of indentation on both sides, and let's see what this looks like. Well, that's much better. That looks like a block quote. It's clearly set off from the rest of the text. So let's declare victory and move on to the next task, which is to format our headings. So let's start just with question presented here. I want a heading 1 because this is the highest level heading in our document. So I'm going to create a new style here. I'm going to base it on body text so it will inherit the Times New Roman font and all that stuff. I'm going to call it memo H1 for heading 1, and the style for the following paragraph is going to be body text. That way, automatically, the text I type in after an H1 heading will be in the proper form. I'll make my heading 14 points. It should be bold, should be just single-spaced. Then in paragraph, there's a couple things we need to do to get this to look right. We want to get rid of indentation. Otherwise, that's looking pretty good. So let's press OK here, and then let's apply our new heading 1 style to our question presented. Now, it's looking okay. Let's go through the document and apply it some other places just to see what our document will ultimately look like. We should eliminate these paragraph marks. We don't want to use paragraph marks to space. So let's add some spacing here because this isn't looking right. We want some space after the heading, so let's make that 12 point. And then we have nice spacing. And notice we're not using paragraph marks to arbitrarily insert space. Now I can go through and format the rest of my level 1 headings. We can format the body text as well. And again, this is all a bit of trial and error. I'm trying to see what this looks like so that our final product will be readable. Now we've come to a level 2 heading. Time to make a new heading. We're going to create a new style. Our new style, of course it's a paragraph style, we're going to base it on memo H1, so it will inherit its characteristics. The style for the following paragraph should be body text. And let's call this memo H2 for our second level heading. Now at this point, things are just kind of arbitrary. What do you want it to look like? I'll just show you that you could make it Times New Roman italicized. Why not? Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so that's okay. I'm not sure I'm totally happy with it, but let's keep going just to see what this document will look like. Now we have a level 3 heading. Here we go through the same process of creating a new style. We're going to base the style on memo H2 so that the settings cascade if you make any changes. So that way if you make a change to H1, it'll actually go on an effect and make consistent H2 and H3. And this should probably be 12 point. And what else could we do? Maybe what we'll do is we'll make this one bold instead of italics. The italic heading just doesn't look that great. Press OK, and now we apply our H3. And let's go format more of this document. There's more body text. Another heading 3. And so yes, this is a bit tedious, but if you work all of this out now, when you start a new document, all this formatting will be in place, and you can write, and it will be readable and well organized from the very beginning. So I'm going to work through to the bottom of the document and make sure all our body text is properly marked. There are no spaces with paragraph marks. We don't want to use paragraph marks for spacing. Get all our body text formatted, all our headings formatted. And here we come to the end of the document with an H1 for the conclusion and then body text for this summation paragraph. So it looks all right. A little more work to do. We have to fix the heading of our memo. We typically will make this with no spacing, so we need a new style for this. We'll go ahead and create a new style just like before. We should probably base it on body text memo. We'll call it memo address block. And the style for the following paragraph is actually H1. We have to do a couple special things to make this work correctly. We want to make it single-spaced, and then under paragraph we have to do some tweaking. We have to get rid of first line indent. And then also we want to click this button, don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. And then 12 points for after the style. So this will make it single-spaced, but after the block there'll be a little bit of comfortable space before we get to the H1. Now just save this as a template and you're done. After you've saved it as a template, you can start a new document from a template and it will not edit the underlying template. It will be treated as a new file. Just checking my work here, I realized that I could do some optimizations. One thing that's really nice to have is a descriptive footer in your memos. So I can double click in the footer area. I want to click on this option in the ribbon that says different first page, and this is going to give me a custom footer on pages 2 and subsequent pages, and I'll put some dummy text in here for a client and issue. This way, if this document becomes unstapled, or if it's presented with a bunch of different documents and let's say a binder, the reader will know what document it is. Let's also do some optimization to the date here. We can go to Insert and then choose Field. This is going to insert a small bit of code that Microsoft Word understands that will keep the date up to date. So you can select the date the document was created or the date the document was last saved. I'll just do last saved. And you can see that I'm up at 5 a.m. working on this. You can update that time by right-clicking on it and doing Update Field. I'm toggling it here so you can see that what the underlying code says. So if I update the field, it'll give us the current date and time. Scrolling through the document, you see that on page 1, there's no footer, no page number, but we have our subsequent descriptive footers. Looking at the document again, I can't say that I'm so happy with these headings. I'm going to modify heading 1. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little smaller. The 14 point just looks a little clownish, so I'm going to reduce that down to 12 points. And then in this pull down here, I want to select borders. And here's something we can do that's kind of special. We could do it for an office memo. Click on Custom, and then click this bottom border option. And what this will do is it will give a line underneath all your headings. And we can do this in an office memo because office memos can be more informal. But also note that because I've properly nested the headings, a change to H1 also changes headings 2 and 3. And all of my headings now have a line under them. And I kind of like that. I like the visual cue that something else is happening here. I'm going to show you the advantage of putting all this dummy text in and formatting it from top to bottom. Now that we've gone through the labor of doing all this work, we can delete this dummy text. And we'll see that since we properly formatted it, when it's time to compose your real memo, all your text will be properly formatted. So here under H1, I'm writing new body text. I'll just call it new dummy text. Then I'm going to start a new line here. I'm going to click on H1, and this is my new header 1. And you'll notice that automatically what you type after H1 is formatted properly as body text. Similarly, if I type a level 2 header, I press return, my body text returns. So you don't have to muck with formatting as you're actually composing your document. Now we can erase all this stuff, and if we're happy with our work, we can go to File and then Save as Template, and this can be our final product. Of course, I'd like you to make your own memo so that you know how to use the tools yourself, but if you're having trouble, feel free to look at the template I've generated for the course. It's in B Courses. To recap, this might all seem a bit tedious, but trust me, If you structure your document with styles and you're rigorous about it, you will have a much easier time later when you need to submit a brief or submit some other document for production. It's going to save you a ton of time at the end if you do this investment at the front end. Here are some basic skills that might be a little tedious, but you need to know them. And if you haven't done these things before, this is how you do them. First, how do you put a footnote in a Microsoft Word document? You're going to do a lot of this because of the importance of citation in legal writing. I think Microsoft Word was maybe designed for like marketing people because putting a footnote in is actually a lot of steps. It's hard and it's complex. I'm not sure why it's this hard. There should be a keyboard shortcut for it. We're going to make a footnote of this famous site. One way to do it is to open up the References ribbon bar and then click on Insert Footnote. From there, I can just highlight and then do Control X for cut and then Control V to paste it here. And I'm going to do some dreaded character formatting to make that citation in its proper italics. Here I'll show the other way of inserting a footnote. You can go up into the menu bar, select Insert, then Footnote. You'll get this dialog that's a little more complex. It has more options, and there you can paste in your second one. Legal texts are so rife with footnotes because in practice and academic culture, it is very important to credit people for their ideas and for their expressions. Be sure to liberally use footnotes. Avoid any question of plagiarism by always citing when you're discussing the ideas and the expressions of another person. This is how you could create a keyboard shortcut. You need to find a command called Customize Keyboard. It's so hard to find that. I just use this help item here. I click on help and I write in Customize Keyboard, and it finds the menu item for me. If you click on that, you get this very confusing dialog, and you can see that there are a huge number of commands in Microsoft Word. So what I do is I click on this option, All Commands, so that all of them are loaded over here, and I'll just search for footnote. And so we see we have all these different options, convert footnotes, and so on. And then here we go, insert footnote. Notice that there's no keyboard shortcut here. This dialog gives us the opportunity to specify a new shortcut. I like to use Command-Shift-F. Now, when I press Command-Shift-F, I get a little warning. It says, watch out, those keys are currently assigned to font. But you know what? I don't care. I never use that keyboard shortcut to get to fonts, so I'm going to overwrite it. I'm going to assign it. So for now on, Command-Shift-F is going to make me a footnote. So here I go. Here I can go to this famous passage. I can do Command-Shift-F, and it brings up the dialog, and there I go. I can paste in my citation. That'll save you a lot of time. I need to say one more thing about citation. Students always ask me, is there any way I can automate citation? Can I use any of these tools in Microsoft Word to manage my cites? The bad news is, the answer is no. The citation tools are still not up to the task. Even citation-specific software like EndNote doesn't work that well. I've struggled with these programs for years. I can never get them to give me a perfectly accurate Blue Book citation. And of course, in the law, it's complex because the citation you do for a law review article is a little bit different than the citation you do for a legal brief. So unfortunately, there's no way to automatically generate your citations. It's just something you need to learn how to do by hand. As a lawyer, you're going to use small caps a lot. And there's two ways to do small capital letters. One is through using the menu bar and going to Format, Font, and then choosing small caps. There's also a great keyboard shortcut you can use, Command-Shift-K. It's Control-Shift-K on a PC. As a lawyer, you often have to use strange symbols, like paragraph marks and section symbols. These are all hidden in Microsoft Word too, and they're kind of hard to find. You have to go to the Insert, and then all the way down to Symbols. I need a section mark for my citation to Cal Civil Code, so I go to Insert, Advanced Symbol, and then under Special Characters, you'll find a lot of symbols that are commonly used in the legal profession. There's Section, and there it goes, inserted. Once you have all those ideas and expressions footnoted, you can mark them to generate a table of authorities. You'll have to do this in briefs, and sometimes if you write a law review article or if you work on a book, you'll have to mark your authorities. This is how you do it. We're going to highlight this entire case citation and then click on Mark Citation in the References ribbon. We're going to set the category to Cases and then Mark All, and you'll see that Microsoft has inserted a field. This actually doesn't print if you print out your paper. We'll do this again for the Cal Civil Code. Here we'll select Statutes, and we'll do Mark All in case there's more examples of that statute. Now here's a third footnote, so let's find its text. We're going to highlight the whole thing. Now this is a book, and you notice there's a page number in it. So we're actually going to remove that page number from the citation marking. We're going to mark it as an other authority, but maybe that's not so clean. We could create a new category here. Let's create a new category for books. And the way you do that, it's quite awkward. You have to select one of these numbers here, and we're going to replace that with books. So now we'll pull, well, that didn't work. So we'll try it again. We click 8, then type books, and we have to press replace. There we go. Now we have an item called books. We'll do Mark All and close. Now from here, we can generate our table of authorities. Again, we go back to the reference ribbon bar, and you'll see that there's a button, Insert Table of Authorities. You have different styles you can do. We'll just do the default. And here we go. We've got a nice table. Now note that if you change your document, you have to update that table. Microsoft Word can also create an index. You probably won't use this in most of your writing, but if you create a really long memoranda, this is how you mark entries and automatically generate an index based on those entries. I'm going to choose some random words that appear in this Latin text frequently. Here I've selected one. I go to the References ribbon, then Mark Entry. This is going to create a special field that recognizes the word dolor and marks it everywhere in the document. Let me choose a second word just to demonstrate. Again, Mark Entry. I'm going to mark all of the entries in the document. Maybe I'll choose a third. I don't see many common ones, so let's just go ahead and generate our index. Again, we go back to the References ribbon bar, Insert Index. There's lots of choices for design, and then it just automatically generates it for you. Let's format the word index so that's in heading 1. Microsoft Word is also very good at generating a table of contents. And the good news is, if you use your styles carefully, it will automatically create that table of contents, and you can update the table of contents really easily. This is how you do it. Space at the top of my document, I'm in the References ribbon, where you can select Table of Contents, then Custom Table of Contents. I've chosen Formal. Critically, you have to click on Options, because currently it's going to set the table of contents based on headings 1, 2, and 3. But remember, we're not using those. We're using our own special headings, Memo H1, and so on. So those have to be numbered. And once you number them, it very quickly makes you a table of contents. It really is that simple. But now, keep in mind that as you change your document, you need to update your table of contents. So one thing I want to do is I want to put a header. I want to call it table of contents, and I format it H1. Now, if you change your document, you have to think about whether your table of contents is up to date. I've added table of contents as H1, and so an interesting error will occur. If I do a right click and I do update field and update entire table, you'll see that table of contents is now in the table of contents, which seems like a big problem. Don't worry about it. Just delete it, and you'll be fine. To recap, in this module I've gone over some little things about documents that end up being important in a big sense.